Okay, here we go. Our maiden voyage of impromptu videos of impromptu processes.
Yeah, I think we should call it how to
I'm
sessions.
gonna love my narration.
I know.
In typical fashion, I would like to start this with a disclaimer. The things that we're going to do today are not the best way to do these things, but they will work in a pinch. We need to make a left-handed corner base cabinet. And so we're just going to start and figure out how to do that.
I'm ready.
Okay. I will start with a blank template, a basic CP standard, not upper, uh, CP standard base right there. Doesn't really matter which one you pick, but I like to pick kind of the most basic option. And then the first thing you want to do is set your dimensions. So let's just say that this cabinet wants to be, I don't know, 40 inches wide. Really, there's a couple things to consider, Avery.
Hmm.
One is whenever I do a corner cabinet, I guess we should probably add some more cabinets so that this makes a little bit of sense. Um, and this room is a little small. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. So now we have two cabinets meeting each other, right? Let's make them 15 and 3/4 because 24 looks too deep for this space. What I'm doing right now is setting a context for this lesson. Um, because a corner cabinet is really built relative to the other cabinet on the opposing wall that it's connecting to. Okay, so there's a couple considerations here. First off, I like to use or leave a couple inches of space here. Like we're trying to not lose space in the corner when these come together, but I want to leave a couple inches of space because anytime you have two cabinets meeting in the corner, there's the junction between those two cabinets is very precise and the walls are tend to be less precise. And so if you can leave gaps in strategic locations, it gives flexibility for the installers, on game
Mhm.
day. It also allows this entire run, like anything that's connected to this cabinet running down the length of this wall, it gives it some flexibility and breathing room. So like if this measurement is off by a 1/4 inch, we're not like smashed between two walls because I like to leave maybe 3 inches or something,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 inches. So now my cabinet is 3 inches off of the opposing wall. See that? So the next question we have about this is like, let's empty both of these cabinets so that this makes a little more visual sense. I'm just going to delete everything. Um, yeah, and then I'm going to add a door to this one, right? Normally it would be I think typically what you encounter in these situations is we would have a right hinging door, like, let me kind of show you what I'm talking about. So this wall is very short. Um, and so normally it would be longer, and then this door would be a right hinge, and this one would be a left hinge. So this one swings open this way, that one swings open this way. Because of how short this wall is, we're gonna turn this around just because it feels kind of weird to have the door open that way. Um, but that's not how we normally do it. So let's turn this around like that. All right, so then the question is like when this cabinet meets this one and forms a corner, how much of a gap do we want between the actual corner and the slab?
I was told 3 inches.
I've done three in the past. Sometimes I do two.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just do three today. It
Cool.
doesn't really matter. Um, okay, so this is going to help us position this cabinet. And then positioning this one where we want it and putting a little filler that closes the gap is going to help us create this cabinet and map it out with its components. So the first thing I want to know is how big is this? I think it's a 1/4 inch. Looking up here. it looks like a quarter inch, 0.252, almost a quarter inch, right? So I'm just gonna take a calculator because I like to use calculators and go 3 minus 0.252 equals 2.748. So this dimension right here is how wide I'm going to want my filler that goes from this corner and dies into this cabinet, right?
Mhm.
Because this number plus 0.252 is 3 inches. And we want 3 inches this way to the beginning of the slab, and then we're going to mimic that on the opposing cabinet.
Where'd you get the 0.252?
So I measured it right here.
Perfect. Okay. I was
Yeah,
taking
so this is probably, these reveals are probably set in millimeters because it looks like it's supposed to be a quarter inch, but it's not exactly a quarter inch. It's 0.002 more than a quarter inch. So anyway, um, let's go ahead and where'd my calculator go? I'm gonna get that number again. So minus 0.252. Okay, so this is the distance that I want the edge of my cabinet from the front of the case, not the slab here, but the front of the case. So to help me get that, I'm going to get rid of these slabs here. So it's making a little more sense visually. I'm going to move that out of the way for now. And we're just going to delete all of this for now. So now we can see we want this to be this number distance vertically away, right?
Mhm.
So how do we get that? Let's measure this. I like to use Excel because I can track a lot of numbers at the same time. So now we've got this vertical distance, 8.25, right?
Mhm.
So we want to move this cabinet, we want to widen it by 8.25 minus that number, right?
Mhm.
Will you write this down for me real quick?
Mhm. Cool.
All right, so now we're going to go 8.25 minus what was that number?
2.748.
148. Okay, so this is what we want to add to the width of this cabinet, right? 5.502. So let's add that to the width. It's going to ask right or left, or maybe not. Now, let's just double check our math and see that this distance from, not there, um, from here to here, right? Because we want it, we don't want it to be to the corner.
Mhm.
We want it to be to the slab because we're trying to match the distance from the edge of the slab to the corner on both sides. And if you look at the vertical, it's a perfect 3 inches,
Mhm.
right? So the other thing I'll do while I've got my measure tool out is I know we already have this number. It's the one you just wrote down, but I forgot what it is. So I'm going to measure it again. So it's 2.748.
Mhm.
Let's just go ahead and add a filler to this cabinet. We're going to make this 2.748 because this is going to fill that gap for us, right? The height of the filler should be the same height as the cabinet. 30.5. These options just basically tell you what orientation it comes into the project at. It doesn't really matter because you can rotate it, but like if you want to bring it in at a certain orientation, I like front because that way it's like facing me the way that I want it to ultimately face for this. If I were doing a top, I'd pick top,
Right.
you know. So looking in three-dimensional space, you can see how it was brought in facing the way that we want it to. That was that front setting. So I'm going to go ahead and position it at the right end of the cabinet, which is the same as the width of the cabinet, because the 0 point of the cabinet is over here. So 29.502. This is the left-right positioning. And then I'm going to bring it forward the depth of the cabinet, minus 3/4 of an inch, right? So 15.75 minus 0.75 is 15. So let's just go 15. Poof, there it is. Should be right where we want it in space. Checking in 3D, let's turn off some of these walls. We want wall 4 and 5, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everything else can go. Okay, so this cabinet doesn't have anything, but our filler looks like it's doing what we want,
Yeah, it
right?
looks good.
Um, Another thing that I think we should do is like right now, I guess this is a double door, which makes sense. But I think it'd be nice if we match, this will be a little tricky, but if we were to closely match, maybe not perfectly match, the width of this slab so that the door on the opposing side is about the same as this door. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's 14.46. Oh, it's gonna be really tricky. 14.46. So this typically they have a 1/4 inch reveal on the outside. So if we go 3 inches here to the edge of the slab, plus 14, what did I say? 4.6?
Hmm.
14.46. So 3 inches plus 14.46 plus 0.25 for the reveal on the end of the cabinet.
Hmm.
That should be roughly the distance from here to the new end of our cabinet.
Okay.
So that was 17.46 plus 0.25 would be 6671, 17.71. All right, so can you write down 17.71? So right now we've got 27.25 to the end. We want this number to be 17.71. So what do we do? Use a calculator. 27.25. What was that number I said?
17.71.
Hopefully my math is right. It's probably not. And we get to do a bunch of broken math on a video, which is great.
Nice.
9.54. Okay, let's see how this works out. Um, I want to take it from the right side. Okay. Right now, I'm just going to assume that I nailed it and we won't double check later. So everyone else can also assume I nailed it. Okay, so
Cool.
right now, things are beginning to come together. So just to recap, I brought in a cabinet over here because a corner cabinet is like the way that you build the corner cabinet, basically like the panel that we put in here to where the door is positioned has everything to do with this reveal and how it comes together with the cabinet on the opposing wall. So for me, it's helpful to bring this in first because it lets me know how to build everything else. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, okay,
So how would you word that? Bring in the cabinet that's gonna like remain the most standard,
I'll
or?
bring two cabinets in at the same time.
Hmm.
I put the cabinet, my actual corner cabinet. The one that's the corner cabinet is the one that dives into the corner,
Right. Okay.
right?
Hmm.
And then I'll put my opposing cabinet on the
Gotcha.
opposing wall, and I'll get my opposing cabinet set up because it's basically just a normal cabinet. Then
Yeah.
it has a filler that fills in the gap,
Gotcha. I like that.
and then I make sure that that filler and is the size that I need it to create the reveal on that corner that we're going for.
Gotcha.
In this case, 3 inches.
So it kind of sets the standards.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it also, like, as we get into the actual corner cabinet, you'll see how, like, where this filler connects dictates everything about how big the panel is here, where this, like, vertical filler that the hinges are going to get attached to are.
Hmm.
And it's also helpful to have all of those dimensions dictated because when we get off into manipulating partitions and other weird objects to make this all work, like we're treading on the line where we're breaking the logic of the cabinet. And so like our connection systems will stop working.
Hmm.
So we want to like not have to manipulate dimensions that much,
Gotcha.
if that makes
That
sense.
makes sense.
Okay, so I'm ready to start working on my corner cabinet. Let me know when you're done with your notes.
Ready.
Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a split on the face, right? I'm
Hmm.
going to reorient this door the direction we want it. I'm going to delete this door, right?
Yep.
So now we've got a couple issues here because I'll bet you my door's not the right size. Well, it looks pretty close.
It is pretty close.
Looks really close. That seems like pure luck. If that it's not exactly the right size. This is a little shorter than that, right? So what we want to do is we want to get that door to be the right size. We want this to be 3 inches.
Mhm.
Right now it's 2.519 inches. So how much do I need to add to it to make it 3 inches? We want 3 inches. We subtract the actual distance that we have, 2.519, and the remainder is the amount we need to
Add to it.
add, right? So 0.481. So I'm going to add this in section view because operating in section view is the best way to go
Keeps a lot
all
there.
the time.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't even remember what that number was. Um, I think I just lost the number.
0.481.
Nice. All right, so I'm just going to add that up here. Okay, so it shrunk my door a little bit. Now let's go back and check. It looks better-ish. It's a perfect 3 inches. Great. So now that our door is where we want it, all we have to do is fill in behind it. Most importantly, this hinge plate, like what we want it to do is we want it to look like this because the hinge has a little bit of top, like adjustability, but it doesn't have that much. So like if the hinge plate is really positioned way out here, like when they actually put the slab on, it's not going to fit because it's going to suck the whole door to the left. So we want to fix that, and I'll show you how to do that. But right now, again, as we're going through our steps, things are beginning to look pretty good, right? Um, all right, so let's go into our cabinet. So there's a few different ways to do this. There's the right way, which we're not getting into today, which is essentially to build this object in the catalog editor, which is a separate piece of software that comes as part of the Cabinet Vision process package. And then there's like quicker workarounds that we do all the time when we're actually designing because we haven't set up a left-handed corner cab. So Jocelyn likes to copy the top. So like if I were to copy the top, I'll just kind of show you what Jocelyn likes to do. And I like to do it a different way for reasons, but I'll just show you this real quick. So she likes to copy the top. The top is already an object. It has a logic to how it connects to things. Um, so she will do something like this, essentially. And then we need to set, if you position it correctly and it touches the, let's see, 30.05. So we want this to be 29. See how this is grayed out?
Yeah.
That's because this is slightly shorter than it should be. So it wasn't actually touching.
I see it.
So she'll do something like this, where she'll copy the top and
Make
then
it
she'll
90
resize
degrees.
it, you know. So I'm just gonna keep going with this, and I'll show you what I don't like about it here in a second. And there are ways to fix it, but I'm gonna wind up doing this a different way that for whatever reason I prefer. Um, okay. So I want to set this at 0.75, so it's like butting into that, right? It's pretty well positioned, honestly. Like the size just happened to work, which frequently doesn't happen, but like in this case, it's pretty dang good. Maybe it's a hair long and I want to shave like 1/8 of an inch off here. Also, unless I want to use one of these weird hinges that connects to the end of the panel, I'm going to need a flat surface here to connect a traditional hinge to. We do have the hinges that connect to the end of the panel, but I think lately we've been preferring to just insert a smaller piece here that we can put a normal hinge on for whatever reason. Just keeps things a little more streamlined in the field. So this just happened to be kind of perfectly the right size, which is not helpful for the purposes of this demonstration, but um, but normally you have to do this. And see what happened here? Like when you adjust things outside of section view, it does not follow the logic and like the automation of the cabinet. So we changed the panel size, but it did not change the size and the placement of the hardware.
Yeah.
So what you get now is this weird situation where we've got one cabinet um, here, and the other cabinet is out here in space, not actually doing anything. And then on the bottom, we've got one cabinet here, and the other one's over here, not doing anything. Normally, we would have to adjust this size to make it exactly how big we want it to fill this space. The fact that it just happened to work is just kind of random luck.
Mhm.
So when you would adjust it, this is where things start to break down.
Gotcha.
And another weird thing is if I do this and then explode this a little bit. Oh, didn't do anything. Never mind. Yeah, so see, there's only one connection point here, and there's one connection point there. So doing the top, there are ways that you can fix that. Like sometimes you can click into the panel, um, like this, and you can adjust the placement, like
Mhm.
of each borehole. Sometimes I think we can in this case. No, see, when it does this, it means it's UCS dictated. Um, so. And so does a star also means UCS dictated. So it's not going to let me change the placement of the boreholes that correspond to the hardware. So that's basically why I don't like to do this method. There are tricks that you can do to make it work, but the other problem is if I were to change the connection method, like for the top in the assembly, it's going to crosswalk that to every other cabinet in the room, which I don't want to do.
Right.
So let's get back on track. Um, what I want to do is I'm going to use a partition.
Mhm.
Um, the upside is we don't use partitions very often, so I can manipulate their connection method for the purposes of this cabinet, and it won't probably create a ton of problems throughout the room. The downside is that if we are using partitions elsewhere in the room, then it will affect those partitions as well.
Mhm. Okay.
So, how you go about creating this panel and this one when you're not doing this the right way in the catalog editor um, is depends on the rest of the room to some extent. You know, I don't think we don't use partitions all that often. It seems unlikely we will, so I'm just going to assume that a partition's going to work. So, what we want to do is we want to add a partition, but we also need to change the partition because the partition usually uses a dado to connect. See how it's bumped up into the top panel
Mhm.
and into the bottom. So it's using a dado, which you can see is that kind of rectangle that doesn't come all the way to the front of the
Mhm.
partition. And it's using those screw holes. Like it has two connection methods, which
Mhm.
is composite connection method. If we explode this, you can really kind of get an idea for what's going on, right?
Yeah, I see that.
Um, so Yeah, so we don't want this because this isn't going to work well on the edge of our panel, right? And
Mhm.
our when we're done with this, well, I need to unexplode this. Like the partition's supposed to fill in as a face piece right here. So we
Mhm.
don't want it dadoing out the front edge, right? So we have to change the connection method of the partition. So I'm going to do that here in room. Now I'm going to go to cabinet because we're working in cabinets, not
Mhm.
closets. I would recommend not messing around in closets at all for the record. Um, I'm going to modify for this room my assembly. So the modifications I'm making in here only apply to the room. They don't apply to the whole job. They don't apply to our overall cabinet vision setup,
Okay, cool.
which is good. Um, A partition exists in the interior case. So the partition section is right here. Um, and I honestly don't think there's anything for me to do in this wizard. Um, but I just figured I would run through it. Machining on the left is fine. Uh, yeah, that's all fine. So we don't actually want to manipulate things about the partition itself. We want to manipulate how it connects. see other components in the cabinet, right?
Mhm.
So we go into connection, we go into partition. There's a series of questions that asks you about how partitions connect to all kinds of different things. In this case, we want our partition to connect to the top and the deck of the cabinet, right?
Right.
So the first question is, how does your partition and top connect? Um, this is attach partition to bottom of top. That's what we want. As opposed to like that, right? See how the picture changed?
Mhm.
We want it to butt into the top. Right now, it has, here's where you select connections. We have a very extensive and kind of convoluted catalog of connections. Um, I don't really mess with 25 very much. Like I might add a little to it, but I don't delete much stuff from it. So hopefully when we're, sorry, 22, when we're in 25, this will be a lot cleaner.
Okay.
But right now it's not. So I don't want to use a dado. I don't want to use screw holes.
Mhm.
I want to use this Cabaneo that I made specifically when I'm doing weird things. It's called Cabaneo dash custom applications. So that's the top, right?
Mhm.
Now we need to do the deck right here. The third question is, how does your partition and deck connect? I'm going to change this to the same one, Cabaneo custom applications. Um, the Cabaneo custom applications kind of just throws Cabaneos and edges and spaces them fairly evenly. So
Okay.
it works a lot of the time
Mhm.
for what we're trying to do. Um, we're updating the room with changes. I just saw some Cabaneos pop into existence. Now I want to look and see what they look like. There's some Cabaneos,
Oh, I see.
right?
Mhm.
So the other things, I don't want this notch,
Mhm.
right? I don't want this notch. I also need this partition to fit this way, you know,
Mhm.
and I want to have a shorty partition that catches a traditional hinge.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do the hinge one first, and I'm going to place it exactly where I want it relative to the door slab, and then
Mhm.
I'm going to do another partition and fill in the void last. But let's get rid of this notch first. So that again, we're going back into our cabinet assembly. It's like a 20-minute video. Okay, so in this case, this is where things get a little confusing, where I actually affect, like, decide whether the partition has a notch in it or not is not in the partition section. You would think it is, but it's not.
Okay.
So where is it? Well, the partition is notching around a nailer. It's actually in the nailer section. You would only know that by fishing around, which I've
Mhm.
done. So I'm going to go through this until I see a question about partitions. There it is. Partition does not split nailer. What does that imply? That the partition um, cuts itself around the nailer because it's not splitting the nailer. If I select this one, partition splits nailer, all of a sudden, if you see in the graphic here, now the partition is diving through the nailer.
Mhm.
So theoretically, it still has a rectangular shape. So we're just going to assume that that works, and then we're going to check and see what happened. Uh, Click in my cabinet. It didn't change anything. Um, the reason it didn't change anything, and this is why working in 22 is challenging, is because a lot of times, we've got the assembly settings dictating stuff
Mhm.
and random UCSs from our very overgrown catalog of UCSs also doing things. So
Mhm.
normally this would have changed the way this came together,
Mhm.
but because we're in 22, keep saying 25, because we're in 22, I'm like 95% sure that there's a UCS also messing with this. So let's change our partition a little bit and see what happens because I'm pretty sure this will work because it just worked before, but that's no guarantee. Down
Okay,
here,
I'm
you can
interested.
adjust the partition. So our cabinet, our case depth is 15 3/4,
Mhm.
but I only want this to be about 3 inches wide because I just need it to be big enough to like be stable and catch a nailer. And the
Mhm.
other thing is I need it to be big enough to have two cabaneos in the top and the bottom so that it doesn't rotate. So 3 inches is a good size for that. So right now it's 15 3/4, so I want this to be 12.75, not minus 12.75. This is the adjustment to the depth of my partition that I'm going to make. Um, so now I'm going to go look. now I've got a tiny little partition. See it? Like it's
Oh
only
yeah.
that big. I'm gonna make, so I made every change that I could make in section view because this preserves the logic.
Right.
Remember? The good thing about that is when I change the size, our cabaneo placement automatically changed. We went from having like three nice evenly spaced cabaneos to having two evenly spaced cabaneos. If I had changed that depth in face view or plan view or any of these other views, it wouldn't have adjusted the cabaneos. We'd have the problem we saw with the top, right? But since I changed it in section view, it fixed it. So now we're just going to set this out. Uh, 12, I think. So let's see. I set it out so that the front of it lines up with the front of the case. Two cabaneos, top and bottom, means that it won't rotate. And right now it is actually, you can see this connection here where the hinge plate is catching it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool, except that it's still a huge gap. Like I don't really want it to be this much of a gap. I want it to be uh similar to a normal hinge, which I can tell like this. If I reverse this door, this is what a normal hinge looks
Yeah, it
like.
got so much closer.
So how like essentially yeah, it got so much closer, and that's a big deal. So what I want to do is I want to figure out how much to the right do I need to move the partition so that it does this with the hinge. Um, so how far is this? We're going to take a couple numbers right now. So you can basically use any two references between this object and the hinge plate because those are the two components that are kind of moving independently of each other. I'm going to use this back dot.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, I'm going to use this top dot and I'm going to use one of these dots. They're all at the same distance horizontally, right? So that's 0.407. Write that down. So I want to adjust that partition that we put in place to catch the hinge so that it results in the distance of this plate, the hinge plate being 4 or 0.407 from the hinge cup. The same way I'm measuring it here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Um, all right, so it's what was it, 0.407?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first question is, where are we at? And then we use our calculator to figure out how far we need to go. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um, so let's reverse this again, and then we'll measure it. You can't really measure in section view for some reason. Like there's a tape measure, but it never works.
Weird.
Um, so the way that I measured the other one was from the top dot to one of these dots over here. So we're at 1.051, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll go 1.051 minus what was the other number?
0.407.
Okay, this is how far I think we need to move that partition, 0.644. So I'm going to do that in section view. I'm going to go to the interior. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to add it right here because that's going to bump the partition to the right, right? 0.407? No, what was it?
0.644.
Okay, it's looking good. So let's check. Okay, this looks better, right? Let's see if we got where we wanted to be. So it's 0.407. That's exactly what it was on the other side, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now success. We've put this vertical partition right where we want it to catch the traditional hinge perfectly. So the last step is we just need to fill in a panel right here.
Right.
I'm going to use another partition because the partition has the right connection method set up, and it's kind of like my custom object of choice for this project. So I'm going to select this, and I'm going to do another vertical split to bring in a partition. I cannot rotate this to fit it where I want it to here. So I know that like when I start working in here, I have to like break the logic by actually manipulating it out here to some extent. But I want my machining to work. So the first thing I know is that I need that partition to be exactly 14.749 inches wide, right? To fill this gap.
Mm-hmm.
And I want my machining to be to even on a partition of that size. So I'm not going to change the width here because that'll break my machining, like I showed you before, right? I'm going to use the adjustments down here to change my width in here. So again, the adjustments is like a plus or minus a certain amount. So I can't like directly change the width, but I can adjust it. It's calling it the depth, but whatever. So we know that we're at 15.75 is how the partition comes in, minus what was that number? 14.
14.749.
Okay, so I want to subtract 1.001 inches off of the depth of my partition. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's not right. I need to put one, right? Yeah. Then I also want to, it doesn't actually, I think I do want to add the outset. We'll find out. Okay, so now it should be the right width. Let's go to plan view. And let's just take it and let's put it over here. And let's rotate it and see what happens. I think it got rid of the notch. I'm gonna just kind of check. Yeah, so it's not notching because it's not touching that nailer anymore. That's a UCS thing because we already changed the assembly. So that notch is being driven by UCSs, which is one of the reasons it's hard to work in 22. A lot of overlapping commands. And let's start rotating this. I think 90 should do it. Nope, that was the wrong way. Did we do it? Oh, there's one other thing. So I almost got it perfect, right? It looks pretty dang good. But there's one thing I don't like about it. My vertical partition that catches the hinge comes all the way to the face of the case.
Oh, yeah.
Creating a seam right here.
Yeah, you don't want to see that.
I don't want that seam, which means we need to adjust two things. We need to set this back like to just 12 instead of, we're going to set it back 3/4 of an inch, right? So it's 12.75. And then we need to extend this over 3/4 of an inch. The one other thing that's going to happen is when we extend this over 3/4 of an inch, this cabinet is going to go under this partition, which is going to make them not fit together very nice because this actually is prominent a little bit, like a half mil or something from the face. So I'm going to go ahead and set this back another 1/16 of an inch. So, because that'll give room for that cabinet to slide behind it.
I see.
So we also need to add 3/4 of an inch here. We're not going to add it in plan view. We're going to add it in section view with the adjustments, right?
Yep.
So I subtracted 12.75, but I want to add 0.75. So I'm just going to go delete that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we probably need to reposition it. That just happened.
Like that didn't do anything.
Yeah, like
except for redo everything. I should say.
Oh, I added it to the wrong partition. Because see, this one's 3.75 now.
I see.
That was my mistake. Yeah, so we want to make this 12.75. Okay. All right, we're back where we want to be.
We made it.
Now we want to select this partition. The weird thing is I moved it. Where is it? It's actually right where it was in the beginning.
Oh.
See, this is where the logic is. When we do things out here, it breaks the logic. So like the brain, the section view doesn't know that we change things in plan and face view. So it still thinks the partition's here, but somehow it knows enough to not draw it.
Yeah.
Some middle ground. It's somewhat aware
Weird.
that things are weird, but it's not sure where it is. So it's still here. So I'm going to, what did I want to do? I subtracted this, but I need to add 3/4 of an inch, right? Okay, so let's check. it added it, but it added it on this side.
Mm-hmm.
But it took our machining. The reason I add it in section view again is to make sure that it's taking the machining with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to set this. I'm just going to add 0.75.
Bingo.
And because we set this back a 16th of an inch, that should be enough to catch it. These drawings aren't exactly perfect, but like without the Cabaneo cover, like this is the Cabaneo cover. It's represented here. It's really like this prominent, which is just barely, but there'll be room for it because it has an extra 16. So now, a 30-minute video later, which is why everything takes so long, folks. um, that's it. Let's check our room and make sure everything looks good. Beautiful.
Stunning.
The only other thing I'll do is like this connection here is generally not that strong. So I usually don't send them with just one filler. I'll usually copy this filler and send one or two additional fillers. And like it doesn't really matter where they are because what we just want is for them to be machined and sent out with the guys. This gives them some wood that they can chop up on the chop saw and like put a little backer in here just to make this filler a little more rigid. So it's not just a 3/4 inch little rip of wood that's pinned in with a few pin nails.
Yeah, you know? Gotcha.
And sometimes they want to like fill the top of the gap in too. In this case, it doesn't matter because there's a counter on top of it, presumably. But I will, even though it doesn't really matter, we just want the material and the design. I'm going to go ahead and set it at this depth because when people look at our pictures, it won't be as visually confusing, if that makes sense. So it's going to try and like put it right behind this other filler. And 19.502 is where this, or 29 is where this should be. Do something similar with this one. Yeah, that's good enough.
Cool.
So it's not as confusing to whoever looks at this. You know, like, wait, what's happening? What's all these random pieces of wood? Any questions? That was kind of a lot.
I know. I don't
We have a
think
video. You can watch it again.
I'm probably gonna have to watch this a good 10 times before I get all the Willow and I, the other day we went into a previous project and we copied and pasted just another cabinet from another project and adjusted things. Why is this not like a plug and play item?
Because two things. Because it hasn't been set up in the catalog editor. And the reason it hasn't done that is because we've been hanging on the cusp of a transition to Cabinet Vision 25 for 5 months. So it doesn't make sense for me to invest a ton of time into building plug and play items into software that we're going to abandon theoretically soon.
Okay. Is this going to be a plug and play item in 25?
Yeah.
So excited.
Yeah, but to make it a plug and play item requires a lot of work.
Yeah.
Because I need to build it as a custom cabinet, and then I also need to use a bunch of equations to set the dimensions of each of the components to be parametric, which means that when you're resizing it and everything, like if you resize the door slab to match the door slab on the opposing wall, it changes all of the other associated components mathematically to match. That requires some time.
And that's kind of the logic that you're talking about.
Yeah.
You have to rewrite the logic in 25 for each.
Yeah, and that's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work.
It doesn't make sense for me to take all the time to do that in this software, which we're going to abandon, you know.
Right. Wonder if you could do like a stripped down like skeleton model, even like without doors, and it might just be.
I mean, if you do what I just did like 3 or 4 times, we can do it in about a third or a quarter of the time.
Okay.
Like we did a lot of talking and I did a lot of showing, you know.
Right. But if you have the steps down, it's like more of a 10 minute.
If you have it, it's probably more of a 10 minute.
Good call. Yeah. Okay, cool. Like, can I get this done?
Like if you do it 1,000 times, it becomes not that crazy.
Gotcha. I feel like I wrote down a bunch of questions, but they were all pretty much answered. What if I were doing drawers? Is it the same 3-inch filler?
Yeah, I do the same thing. We're essentially, if we were doing drawers, there'd be more crazy things that need to happen because this cabinet would need it would need like a panel here to catch the guide,
Yeah.
but we're still trying to leave it open here. So we probably have like a thick shelf going all the way across, kind of like boxing out the top, and then we create a full length partition back here, to catch the guide, and then the drawer would slide in the top. And then under that, we would essentially have this narrow strip catching the hinge and all of that jazz.
Weird.
More complicated.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, that's it. Those were my questions. I don't
That's
know.
all, folks. Okay, how do we stop the recording?